had been working on the space station for 6 months. He was a human medic, one of the few humans allowed to live and work among the alien races. The station was huge. It floated in deep space like a small city made of silver metal and blue lights. Thousands of aliens from different worlds lived there together. There were tall beings with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. They moved gracefully and spoke in soft voices. They were known across the galaxy as healers and scientists. Their medical technology was far more advanced than anything humans had, often felt like a child among them. His simple human medicine seemed almost useless compared to their machines and treatments. But did not mind. He was happy to learn. He was happy to help in any small way he could. They were kind to him. They let him assist with minor tasks and watch their procedures. He spent his days cleaning equipment, organizing supplies, and sometimes holding the hands of patients who were scared. It was late in the station's night cycle when heard the scream. He was walking through the quiet corridor near the medical wing. The lights were dim. Most of the station's residents were sleeping. Was heading back to his small room after a long shift. His feet were tired and his eyes were heavy. Then the sound cut through the silence like a knife. It was a scream of pure pain. It was so loud and so full of suffering that felt his heart stop for a moment. The sound echoed through the metal walls. It was coming from somewhere ahead of him. Started to run. He followed the screaming through the corridors. His boots made loud sounds on the metal floor. The screaming did not stop. It rose and fell like waves, each cry more terrible than the last. Had heard people in pain before. He had worked in hospitals on Earth. He had seen injuries and sickness, but he had never heard anything like this. The sound led him to a part of the medical wing he had never entered before. The doors here were sealed with special locks. Signs in the language marked them as restricted areas. Did not care. The screaming was coming from behind one of these doors. He pressed his hand against the door panel. To his surprise, it opened. Perhaps someone had forgotten to lock it, or perhaps the security system recognized him as a medical worker. Either way, the door slid open and stepped inside. The room was large and filled with medical equipment. Blue lights flickered from machines that did not understand. Several doctors stood around a bed in the center of the room. Their faces were troubled. Their hands moved over control panels, but nothing they did seemed to help. On the bed was a woman. She was screaming. Her body twisted and turned on the bed. Her hands gripped the sheets so hard that her fingers had torn through the fabric. Her pale blue skin was covered in sweat. Her large, dark eyes were squeezed shut. Tears ran down her face. Had never seen such suffering. One of the doctors noticed him and raised a hand. "Human, you should not be here. This area is restricted." "What is wrong with her?" asked. He could not look away from the woman on the bed. "Why is she in so much pain?" The doctor's face showed great sadness. "She is experiencing nerve bloom. It is a rare condition among our people. Her neural pathways are activating all at once. Every nerve in her body is sending signals of pain to her brain. It is like being burned and frozen and cut all at the same time." "Felt sick. Can you stop it? Can you give her medicine?" "There is no medicine," another doctor said. "There is no treatment. Nerve bloom is incurable. We can only wait. The condition will run its course over many days. Then..." The doctor did not finish the sentence. "Then what?" demanded. "Then she will die," the first doctor said quietly. "The pain will destroy her mind long before it destroys her body. She will lose all sense of herself. She will become empty, and then her heart will stop." The woman screamed again. Her voice was growing weaker now. She had been screaming for so long that her throat was damaged, but the pain showed no signs of stopping. Felt tears in his own eyes. This was wrong. This was so terribly wrong. No one should have to suffer like this. No one should have to die in such agony. "How long?" he asked. "How long does she have?" "Perhaps 3 days, perhaps 4. We cannot know for certain." 3 or 4 days of this torture. The thought made his stomach turn. He looked at the woman on the bed. She was beautiful even in her suffering. Her features were delicate and her long, dark hair spread across the pillow like water. She looked young. She had her whole life ahead of her. "Can I stay with her?" asked. The doctors exchanged looks of surprise. "Why would you want to stay? There is nothing you can do. There is nothing any of us can do." "I know," said, "but she should not be alone. No one should die alone." The doctors seemed confused by this. They were logical beings. They did not understand the human need to be present with those who suffered, but they did not stop him. They simply stepped aside and returned to their useless monitoring of machines. Walked slowly toward the bed. The woman's screaming had become a constant low moan. Her body still twisted with pain, but she seemed to have less strength now. Each movement was smaller than the last. He did not know her name. He did not know anything about her. But in that moment, none of that mattered. She was a living being in pain and could not simply walk away. He reached down and took her hand in his. The moment their skin touched, something strange happened. The woman's body went still. Her moaning stopped. The machines around the bed made new sounds, beeping and clicking in confusion. The doctors turned to look, their dark eyes wide with shock. The woman opened her eyes. She looked directly at. Her eyes were wet with tears, but the terrible pain in them was fading. She took a deep breath, then another. Her grip on his hand tightened, but not from pain. It was like she was holding onto him for safety. "The pain," she whispered. Her voice was rough and broken from screaming. "The pain is stopping." Stared at her. He did not understand what was happening. He had done nothing special. He had only taken her hand. The doctors rushed forward, checking their machines and scanning her body. Their faces showed complete disbelief. "This is impossible," one of them said. "Her neural activity is stabilizing. The nerve bloom is receding." "How?" another doctor demanded. "What did the human do?" Looked down at his hand wrapped around the woman's blue fingers. He had no answer to give them. He had no idea what he had done. But the woman was no longer screaming. For now, that was enough. The doctors worked through the night. They ran test after test on the woman. They scanned her body with machines that glowed with blue light. They took samples of her blood and studied them under powerful microscopes. They checked every reading and every number 3 times over. Stayed by her side through all of it. He did not let go of her hand. Every time he tried to pull away, even just to rest his arm, the woman's face would twist with returning pain. So he held on. He sat in a chair beside her bed and kept his fingers wrapped around hers. Her name was. She told him this in a weak voice sometime in the early hours of the morning. She was a researcher on the station, a scientist who studied ancient languages from dead civilizations. She was 32 years old in human terms. She had been healthy all her life until the nerve bloom struck without warning. "I was reading in my room," she told. "Then suddenly the pain started. It was like my whole body was on fire. I could not think. I could not move. I only screamed." Squeezed her hand gently. "You are safe now. I am here." Looked at him with her large, dark eyes. "I do not understand what you did. I do not understand how you stopped it, but I am grateful. I thought I was going to die." "You are not going to die," said firmly. He was not sure if this was true, but he wanted it to be true. He wanted it very badly. The lead doctor, an older named, approached them as the station's lights began to brighten for the day cycle. His face was tired but also filled with wonder. "We have completed our analysis," said. "What we found is remarkable. It should be impossible, and yet the evidence is clear." "What did you find?" asked. Pulled up a holographic display. It showed 2 images side by side. One was a scan of his nervous system, filled with bright red lines showing overactive nerves. The other showed the same system, but the red lines were calm and blue. "This is neural activity before you touched her," explained, pointing to the first image. Every nerve was firing at maximum intensity. The pain would have been beyond description. He pointed to the second image. This is her neural activity now, almost normal. The nerve bloom is still present in her body, but it is dormant, sleeping. How? Asked. She looked at its hand holding hers. How is this possible? Brought up another display. This one showed a wave pattern, like the lines on a heart monitor. Humans produce a unique bioelectric field. All living beings produce some form of, but the human pattern is different from any other species we have encountered. Your electrical signature operates at a specific frequency. Frowned. I do not understand. What does that mean? It means your body gives off a type of energy that we cannot copy with our machines, said. This energy, when in direct contact with tissue, has a calming effect on our neural pathways. It is like a song that puts the nerves to sleep. Your touch literally turns off pain. The room was quiet as everyone absorbed this information. Looked down at his hand at the place where his skin met blue fingers. He had never thought of himself as special. He was just a medic from Earth. He had no great skills or abilities. He was ordinary in every way. But apparently, his touch could do something that all the advanced medicine of the could not. This is unprecedented, continued. In all our thousands of years of medical science, we have never found a treatment for nerve bloom. We always believed it was incurable, but now, he looked at with something close to awe, now we have hope. What happens if I let go? Asked. Will the pain come back? We believe so, admitted. The human bioelectric effect seems to require continuous contact. When you release her hand, the calming signal will stop. The nerve bloom will wake up again. His grip on his hand tightened. Fear flickered across her face. She had experienced the full horror of the pain. She did not want to go back to it. Understood. He shifted in his chair and held her hand with both of his. Then I will not let go. I will stay with you until the nerve bloom passes. His eyes filled with tears. That could be days, perhaps a week or more. You cannot stay awake that long. You cannot hold my hand forever. I can try, said simply. Shook his head. The human is correct that this is not a permanent solution, but perhaps there is another way. If we can study the effect more closely, we might be able to create a device that copies the human bioelectric frequency. Such a device could treat nerve bloom patients without requiring a human to be present. Then study it, said. Do whatever tests you need to do. I am not going anywhere. Over the next several hours, the doctors attached sensors to his body. They measured his heart rate, his brain activity, his skin conductivity, and dozens of other things he did not understand. They mapped the electrical field that his body produced. They created detailed charts and graphs. Through it all, held his hand. They talked to pass the time, told him about her work translating ancient texts. She described the excitement of discovering a new language and the puzzle of figuring out what it meant. Her eyes lit up when she spoke about her research. Could see that she loved her work deeply. Told her about Earth. He described the blue oceans and the green forests. He told her about the smell of rain and the feeling of wind on his face. Listened with fascination. She had never been to Earth. She had only seen pictures. Your world sounds beautiful, she said. It is, agreed, but it is also small compared to this. He gestured at the space station around them. Humans are still new to all of this. We have only been traveling between stars for a few hundred years. You have been doing it for thousands of years. Smiled weakly. Technology does not make us better. Right now, all of our thousands of years of knowledge cannot do what you are doing with a simple touch. Felt his face grow warm. He was not used to being praised. He was not used to being special in any way. As the hours passed, grew tired. His eyes became heavy and his body wanted to sleep, but he did not let go of his hand. When he started to drift off, she would squeeze his fingers gently and he would wake up again. They helped each other through the long night. Returned in the morning with news. His face showed excitement that he could barely contain. "We have made progress," he announced. "We have mapped the human bioelectric frequency completely. We are beginning work on a device that can reproduce it. If we are successful, it will be the greatest medical breakthrough in history." Smiled tiredly. "That is good news." "There is more," continued. "I have contacted other medical facilities across the galaxy. There are currently 17 suffering from nerve bloom. If we can perfect this technology, we can save them all." His hand tightened around. Her eyes were bright with hope for the first time since this nightmare began. "You may have just saved my people from one of our greatest fears," she whispered too. "How can I ever thank you?" Looked at her and smiled. His eyes were tired but kind. "You can start by getting better. That will be thanks enough." 3 days passed on the space station. Did not leave side for more than a few minutes at a time. When he needed to eat or use the bathroom, another human on the station would come and hold her hand. There were only 4 other humans living there, and all of them took turns helping. But always seemed calmer when was the one touching her. The other humans helped, but their effect was not as strong. The doctors ran more tests and discovered that not all human bioelectric fields were exactly the same. His particular frequency was an almost perfect match for calming nerves. It was like his body was made to help her. News of the miracle spread quickly across the station. Aliens from many different species came to look at the human who could stop pain with his touch. They stared at like he was some kind of strange animal in a zoo. Some of them took pictures. Others asked him questions about Earth and about humans in general. Did not enjoy the attention. He was a private person who liked quiet work and simple routines. But he answered their questions politely and tried to explain that he was nothing special. He was just a regular human doing what any decent person would do. Watched all of this with quiet admiration. She saw how uncomfortable was with the crowds and the curiosity. She saw how he never complained, never acted annoyed, never turned anyone away rudely. He was patient and kind even when he was exhausted. On the 4th day, the doctors brought good news. They had made progress on the device that would copy the human bioelectric frequency. It was not ready yet, but they expected to finish it within another week. Until then, would need to continue holding his hand. "I am sorry," said to him that evening. They were alone in the medical room. The blue lights of the machines blinked softly around them. "I am keeping you from your life. You have not slept in a real bed in days. You have not been able to do your work, all because of me." Shook his head. "This is my work now. Helping people is what I do. It is why I became a medic." "But I am not even human," pointed out. "Why do you care so much about me?" Was quiet for a moment. He looked at their joined hands, at the contrast between his brown skin and her pale blue fingers. They were so different. They came from worlds that were light years apart. Their bodies were built in completely different ways. And yet holding her hand felt natural. It felt right. "When I was a child on Earth," began slowly, "my grandmother was very sick. She had a disease that the doctors could not cure. She was in pain all the time. I used to sit with her and hold her hand just like this. I could not make her better. I could not take away her pain, but I could be there with her. I could make sure she was not alone." Listened silently, her dark eyes fixed on his face. "She told me something before she died," continued. "She said that love is not about fixing problems. Love is about being present. It is about staying when things are hard. It is about holding on even when there is nothing else you can do." He squeezed his hand gently. "That is why I care, because being there for someone is never a waste of time. It does not matter if they are human or anything else. Pain is pain, loneliness is loneliness, and kindness is kindness." Felt tears running down her face. She had lived among the all her life. Her people were logical and calm. They did not speak about emotions openly. They did not share their hearts the way just had. "You are remarkable," she whispered. "Your people are remarkable." Smiled softly. "We are just human, nothing more." As the days went on, something changed between them. It was slow and quiet, like a plant growing in sunlight. They spent every hour together, talking about everything and nothing, told about his childhood, about his dreams, about the mistakes he had made and the lessons he had learned. Shared her own stories, her hopes, her fears, her secret wishes for the future. They learned each other's favorite foods and favorite colors. They discovered that they both loved the silence of space and the beauty of distant stars. They laughed at the same jokes and felt sad about the same tragedies. A bond was forming between them. It was deeper than friendship. It was something neither of them had words for yet. One night, when the station was quiet and dark, asked a question she had been thinking about for days. "What will happen when I am well again?" Looked at her with tired eyes. "What do you mean?" "I mean, when the device is ready and I no longer need your touch to survive, what will happen to us? Will you go back to your normal life? Will I go back to mine? Will we just forget about each other?" Was quiet for a long time. He had been thinking about the same thing. The idea of walking away from, of never seeing her again, made his chest feel tight and painful. "I do not want to forget you," he admitted. "I do not think I could, even if I tried." His eyes shone in the dim light. "I do not want to forget you either." They sat in comfortable silence, their hands still joined. Neither of them knew what the future would bring. They had strict rules about relationships between different species. Humans and had never been close in that way before. There would be complications and objections and difficult conversations ahead. But in that quiet moment, none of that mattered. They were two beings who had found each other in the vast emptiness of space. They had connected in a way that transcended biology and culture, and everything else that was supposed to keep them apart. Lifted its hand to his lips and kissed it gently. It was a human gesture, something that did not do, but understood its meaning. She smiled through her tears. "Whatever happens," said softly, "we will face it together, I promise." Nodded. She believed him. She had never trusted anyone the way she trusted this strange, wonderful human who had walked into her life and stopped her pain with nothing but his touch. The station's lights began to brighten as another day cycle started. The doctors would return soon. The tests would continue. The device would get closer to being finished. But for now, in the quiet blue light of the medical room, and held hands and watched the stars through the window, they did not know what tomorrow would bring. They only knew that they would face it together. And for both of them, that was enough. The council held their meetings in a great chamber at the center of the space station. The room was round and decorated with symbols of ancient history. 12 council members sat in tall chairs arranged in a circle. They were the oldest and most respected on the station. Their decisions shaped the lives of thousands. Elder was the head of the council. She was over 200 years old, with silver streaks in her dark hair and deep lines around her large eyes. She had seen many things in her long life. She had guided her people through difficult times. She believed in tradition and order above all else. She did not like what she was hearing about the human and the sick woman. "Explain this situation to me again," Elder said to Doctor. Her voice was calm but cold. "You are telling me that cannot be separated from this human without experiencing terrible pain." Bowed his head respectfully. "That is correct, Elder. The human named produces a bioelectric frequency that suppresses nerve bloom. Without his touch, the condition becomes active again and causes extreme suffering. And this has been going on for how many days?" 8 days now, Elder." Elder's eyes narrowed. 8 days of constant physical contact between and a human. 8 days of them sleeping in the same room, eating together, talking together, holding hands like. She paused, searching for the right words. Like bonded partners. Shifted uncomfortably. Their relationship has developed during this time, yes, but it was necessary for survival. Without, she would have died. "There are worse things than death," Elder said quietly. The other council members murmured in agreement. They were traditionalists, all of them. They believed that the people must remain pure and separate from other species. Friendship with aliens was acceptable. Trade and cooperation were necessary. But deep emotional bonds, relationships that crossed the boundaries of species, these were forbidden. "What is the status of the medical device?" another council member asked. "The one that will replace the human's touch." "We are close to finishing it," answered. "Perhaps 2 or 3 more days." "Good," Elder said. "Once the device is complete, the human will no longer be needed. He will return to his normal duties and will be treated using technology alone. Their connection will be ended." Looked troubled. "Elder, with respect, I am not certain that ending their connection is wise. The bond between them has grown strong. Separating them could cause emotional harm to both." "Emotional harm?" Elder's voice became sharp. "Doctor, are you suggesting that a woman has formed a romantic attachment to a human? Are you suggesting that we should allow this?" "I am suggesting that we should consider their," said carefully, "both of them." Elder stood up from her chair. Her tall figure cast a long shadow across the chamber floor. "The of our people depends on maintaining our identity. For thousands of years we have kept ourselves separate. We do not mix with other species. We do not dilute our culture with foreign influences. This is how we have survived. This is how we have thrived." She turned to face the other council members. "If we allow this human and this woman to continue their bond, what message does that send? Others might think such relationships are acceptable. Our youth might forget why we keep ourselves apart. Our traditions might crumble." The council members nodded gravely, remained silent. He knew there was no point in arguing further. "This is my decision," Elder announced. "When the medical device is complete, will be moved to an isolation ward. She will be treated using the device, and she will have no further contact with the human. The human will be restricted from the medical wing entirely. If he attempts to see her, he will be removed from the station." The words hit like a physical blow. "Elder, please, this is cruel. They have done nothing wrong." "They have done everything wrong," Elder replied coldly. "They have formed a bond that should not exist. Now we must break it before it spreads like a disease." She waved her hand dismissively. "This meeting is over. See that my orders are carried out." Left the council chamber with a heavy heart. He had dedicated his life to healing people, to ending their suffering. Now he was being ordered to cause suffering. It went against everything he believed in. But he was not a brave man. He was old and tired. He did not have the strength to fight the council. He went to the medical wing and found them sitting together by the window. They were looking at the stars and talking softly. Their hands were joined as always. They looked peaceful. They looked happy. Felt sick as he delivered the news. His face went pale. Eyes filled with tears. They listened in shocked silence as explained the council's decision. When he finished, no one spoke for a long moment. "They cannot do this," finally said. His voice was tight with anger. "They cannot just separate us. They cannot just lock her away." "They can," said sadly. "They have the authority. Their word is law on this station." "Then I will take her away from this station," declared. "I will take her somewhere safe, somewhere their laws cannot reach us." "There is nowhere to go," whispered. She sounded defeated. "They have influence across the galaxy. There is no place where we could hide." "I do not accept that," said firmly. He turned to face her and took both of her hands in his. "Listen to me. I did not save your life just to let them take you away. I did not fall in love with you just to give up without a fight." His breath caught in her throat. You love me." Looked into her dark eyes. "Yes, I love you. I think I have loved you since the first moment I took your hand. And I am not going to let anyone tear us apart. Not the council, not their laws, not anything." Tears ran down his blue cheeks. "I love you too," she whispered. "I was afraid to say it. I thought it was impossible. I am a human. It has never happened before." "Then we will be the first," said. We will show them that love does not care about species or traditions or rules. Love is stronger than all of that. He pulled her close and held her tight, buried her face against his chest and let herself cry. She was scared. She was overwhelmed, but she was also filled with a fierce hope that she had never felt before. They had 2 or 3 days before the device was complete, 2 or 3 days before the council would try to separate them. Was already making plans. He did not know exactly what he was going to do. He did not know how he was going to fight an entire council of powerful aliens, but he knew one thing with absolute certainty. He was not going to lose her, not now, not ever. Whatever it took, he would find a way. The medical device was completed on the morning of the 11th day. Doctor brought it to his room with a heavy heart. It was a small silver band that wrapped around the wrist. Inside it, complex technology recreated the human bioelectric frequency. It worked perfectly in all the tests. Guards came with 2 tall security officers with serious faces. They were there to enforce the council's orders. They were there to take to isolation and remove from the medical wing forever. Stood in front of his bed like a shield. His fists were clenched at his sides. His jaw was tight with determination. He had not slept all night. He had been thinking about what to do, planning and rejecting one idea after another. In the end, he had decided that he would simply refuse to leave. They would have to drag him away by force, and even then, he would come back. He would keep coming back until they threw him off the station entirely. "Step aside, human," one of the guards said. "Do not make this difficult." "I am not going anywhere," replied, "and neither is she, not unless she chooses to." Stepped forward. "Please, fighting will only make things worse. The council's decision is final, accept it and move on." "No," said simply, "I will not accept it, I will never accept it." The guards moved toward him. They were larger than him, stronger than him. They could easily overpower him and carry him away. Knew this, he did not care. But before they could reach him, a voice rang out across the room. "Stop!" Everyone turned to look at. She was sitting up in her bed, her dark eyes blazing with a fire that no one had ever seen in her before. The weak, suffering woman who had screamed in pain was gone. In her place was someone else entirely. Someone strong. Someone determined. "I have something to say," announced, "and you will all listen." The guards hesitated, looked uncertain, even was surprised by the change in her. Swung her legs over the side of the bed and stood up. She was still weak, still recovering from the nerve bloom, but she forced herself to stand tall. She walked forward until she was standing beside. "For my entire life," began, "I have followed the rules of I have done what I was told. I have believed what I was taught to believe. I have never questioned the council or our traditions. I was a good, obedient." She paused and looked at, her eyes softened with love. "And then I got sick. The nerve bloom struck me and I thought I was going to die. I screamed in agony for hours and no one could help me. All of our advanced medicine, all of our thousands of years of knowledge, none of it could save me." She turned back to face the guards and her voice grew stronger. "Then this human walked into my room. He was not supposed to be there. He broke the rules by entering a restricted area, but he did it anyway because he heard someone suffering and he wanted to help. He did not know me. He did not owe me anything, but he stayed. He took my hand, and he saved my life." Tears were forming in his eyes, but she did not let them fall. "The council says that our bond is wrong. They say that I should not love a human. They say it goes against our traditions, our identity, our way of life. But I ask you this. What is our identity if we abandon those who suffer? What is our tradition if it denies love and compassion? What kind of life are we living if we separate 2 people who care for each other?" She reached out and took his hand. Their fingers interlaced naturally, as they had done so many times over the past 11 days. "This man showed me what true kindness looks like. He sat with me for days without sleep. He held my hand until his arm ached. He talked to me, laughed with me, cried with me. He did all of this not because he had to, but because he chose to, because that is who humans are. They help others. They love freely. They do not let rules and traditions stop them from doing what is right. She lifted her chin proudly. I love this human. I love him with all of my heart, and I am not ashamed of it. I am proud of it, because loving someone like is not a weakness. It is a strength. The room was completely silent. No one moved. No one spoke. Then stepped forward. His old eyes were wet with tears. What you have said, it is beautiful, but the council will not change their minds. What will you do? Smiled. It was a sad smile, but also a brave one. I will go to the council myself. I will stand before them and say what I have said here, and if they still want to separate us after that, then I will leave this station. I will give up my home, my work, everything I have ever known, because a life without is not a life I want to live. Squeezed her hand. You do not have to give up everything for me. I am not worth that. Turned to him, her eyes were full of love. You are worth everything to me. You taught me that love is about being present, about staying when things are hard, about holding on even when there is nothing else you can do. Now I am holding on. I am staying. I am choosing you. Hours later, stood in the great chamber before the full council. She was still weak, still wearing the silver band on her wrist that kept her pain at bay. Stood beside her, refusing to let her face this alone. Elder looked down at them from her tall chair. Her face was cold and stern. You were supposed to be in isolation, the elder said. Why have you come here? Took a deep breath. Then she repeated everything she had said in the medical room. She spoke of love and kindness and the true meaning of tradition. She spoke of sacrifice and her own choice. She held nothing back. When she finished, there was a long silence. Then slowly, one of the other council members stood up. She was younger than Elder with gentle eyes. I was touched by nerve bloom when I was young, this council member said quietly. I remember the pain. I remember thinking I would die. If anyone could have stopped that pain, I would have done anything. I would have loved anyone. She looked at with understanding. I support this woman and her human. Love should not be forbidden. Compassion should not be punished. Another council member stood, then another. One by one, 8 of the 12 council members rose to their feet. They stood in support of and. Elder's face turned red with anger, but she was outvoted. There was nothing she could do. Very well, she said through clenched teeth. The council's previous decision is overturned. The woman and the human may continue their relationship, but do not expect this to happen again. Traditions exist for a reason. Bowed respectfully. Thank you, Elder. Perhaps someday you will understand that traditions must grow and change, or they will become prisons instead of guides. She took his hand and they walked out of the chamber together. Behind them, the council members began to argue among themselves. The old ways were being challenged. Nothing would ever be quite the same. Outside in the quiet corridor, pulled into his arms. He held her tight and whispered into her hair. You were amazing. I have never seen anything like that. Laughed softly. I learned from you. You taught me to fight for what matters. They stood there for a long moment, holding each other. Around them, the vast space station hummed with life. The stars shone through the windows. The galaxy stretched out in all directions, full of wonders and dangers and infinite possibilities. But were not thinking about any of that. They were thinking about each other, about the future they would build together, about the love that had begun with a simple touch and had grown into something that even the stars could not contain. Sometimes healing comes from the most unexpected places. And sometimes love is the greatest medicine of all.